Hello and welcome back to Vessel and Voice. I'm your host, Kim Charlson. And in today's episode, we're going to be answering a listener question about how we can work with the timelines of our lives and whether or not timelines in the future and the past still affect us now and how all of that works, because it can be quite confusing. So let's get into it. Before we get into today's episode, I first wanted to send my appreciation to you for listening to this podcast. We've had a really big uptick in listenership lately, and I just want to welcome you if this is a more recent episode that you've listened to, or if you've been with us for a really long time and listened to every single episode. Thank you so much for being here with me and Monty. And if you're new, just to introduce Monty briefly, Monty is my spirit guide. And we've been working together in this life and in past lives to help provide people with more of a higher perspective of guidance to help us come more into union with our souls and to express that energy a little bit better in each one of our own individual lives. Because as we express our own unique soul energy, not only do we get to live more in alignment and have more enjoyable lives, but that energy creates a cascade effect which then enables others to live their lives more in alignment too. So it is kind of the mission of this podcast. So I'm so delighted to have you here with us. And I know Monty is as well. And just really sending you thanks and appreciation for listening. Today's episode comes to us from a listener, Julian. So we want to appreciate them for sending in this question. And Julian writes, in thinking about what you have shared about your next life that will be back in time from the point of time where we are currently in now, I'm sitting with the question of free will. I imagine you may hear this question frequently. I haven't heard you address it on the podcast, and I think it would be a very good one to cover. If the past is in the past and it has been written, and those actions were taken are set in stone in your next life when you live in a time that happened before this one, how is it that you are going to be able to exercise your free will? If you were to live that life as we live our lives right now, you would assume that the future is not written and that we are free to shape our lives. However, a past life is already written from the beginning to end. I would love to hear what your team / Monty has to say about this apparent paradox. Monty answers this question, but not fully. And I think the reason why is that we have to get this understanding about time and how time works in energetics first before we can understand how free will plays into it. And I know what you're going to think as you start listening to this. If you are a True Detective fan, you're going to think, well, time is a flat circle. And if you've never seen that show before, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And this is going to probably be very confusing. There is a concept that True Detective highlighted that we just repeat the same cycles over and over as humanity, that we continue to make the same mistakes over and over, have the same experiences, the same problems, the same joys over and over. It originally comes from Nietzsche and is kind of a joke in True Detective of like time is a flat circle. And I think it's kind of interesting that what Monty talks about today is that time is quite literally a flat circle in his analogy. Now, I will say, I did ask him, is this the literal meaning that you meant? And he says, no, this is more of an analogy to help you understand. So use this as a tool in this episode for understanding how your lives affect each other, and then begin to reflect on then how free will works of if the events in the past can change in our relationships to them, as Monty is going to talk about, doesn't that mean that free will is always available to us? At least in my perspective. So let's hear from Monty and what he has to say in his channeled guidance, and then we'll come back to do some reflection at the end. This question from one listener is important to understand in the way that you are not in a chronological being. There is a concept within humanity that everything has a time and a place. It exists in an order of events, that time is created through events as they occur, that when one event happens, it is a place in time until the next event happens. the next event, and the next event. And so you are looking at this as, I am living this life in this place now, and these are the events of my life. And at a macro scale, I lived this life previously, and I will live this life next. And those are the events of my timeline. And while it is easy for humans to understand their lives and how they affect you in this way, the truth is that it is much more of a circle than it is a single line. Everything is happening all at once within all of your lives at the same moment. They are all happening at the same time. This is the reality that you live in, although it is unacknowledged. At the same moment, what we would like to do is to help you examine energetically a particular event in your life that stands out, that helps you understand how these things are still occurring as they are occurring. Take in your mind an event that is a difficult event for you that happened when you were younger. It can be something as simple as you lost a toy, or something much more difficult if you choose. But we would like you to choose something that is sad, has a certain amount of emotion with it, but is not terribly disruptive to your being. So now that you have this particular event in mind, what we would like you to do is to take a deep breath and allow yourself to experience that event as it occurred. And this is why it is important that you pick something that is not terribly disruptive, but that has strong negative emotions associated with it. So taking a deep breath and allowing you to experience this event again, you will notice that the energy of that event is still very much present with you. It is in this moment that you are still experiencing the event that happened in your timeline many years ago. That event still affects you, and the energy is still present with you. Until you have done the work of releasing this event and the emotions and energy that came with it to the point that you are neutral in it, you are still currently living that event, even though in your logical timeline, it happened in the past and that you are in the present. It is important to understand that this is truly how energetic timelines work. That until you have gone through the process of coming to the point of neutrality, you are still affected by the things that occurred in events previous in your timelines. And we say timelines to mean the multiple lives that you have lived. Now, using this one example, you can also think of a very fortunate and happy event that occurred in your life, a fond memory that you look upon. And as you bring up that energy again within yourself, you are able to re-experience that energy. It is not something that you feel neutral about, and so you are still living in that energy. Now, you would reasonably believe that it only occurs when you are bringing up that energy within yourself again, that you are the creator of that energy. However, this is not true. You are experiencing the energy that you have embedded inside of yourself from the previous occurrence. Now, what we would also like you to do is to take an imagined future that you feel very optimistic about. Taking a deep breath and allowing yourself to imagine how you would feel in that moment in the future, an event that has not happened yet, to allow yourself to live in that energy. And yet again, you are feeling the emotions and energy of that event, but it has not happened yet. And yet, the events that have happened and the ones that may happen in the future can be felt similarly as strongly as you are in this moment. You can also do the same of an event in the future that you expect to happen that will have a negative outcome for you. And you can feel the anxiety, the dread, the negative emotions that will come up from that as well. That you are living in that moment even though it has not happened yet. Now, again, you would say, I am the one who is creating that anxiety. I am the one who is creating that. But when we look at energy instead, it is that you are connecting your energy in relationship to the event, forward or backward from where you are in your logical timeline. and experiencing the energy through that connection. You are not creating the energy within yourself because you are connecting to an event within timelines. Now, there is a certain understanding that yes, the events as you imagine them in the future have the potential to occur, but they also have the potential to not occur. So how is it that you can experience things by connecting to them in relationship when they may or may not occur? And how can you look at the past and say, I experienced this one way, but then in truth, the reality was something different? These are realizations that you often have as you grow, as you come more into your own awareness. For example, things that you look back on very negatively as you have done healing, you look at it with a more neutral perspective or a more happy perspective. You are changing your relationship to that event. How can that be? That the energy of that event as you are connected to it is different. And it is because that you are only in this one point of time and your consciousness is focused in this moment. And when your consciousness focuses on the past or the future, you are treading your consciousness down potentialities. And all of those potentialities can affect your energy in this moment, whether or not they have occurred both in the past and the future. That your consciousness in this moment is determined by your relationship to those events of what you are in relationship to. And this is why sometimes in your relationships with other people, you remember events in the past in one way and they remember them in a different way. You were experiencing the same event through different energies and therefore different realities. And this is difficult for humans to understand because you would say the facts are the facts. This happened and then this happened, but their interpretation of the facts is different than my interpretation of the facts. Now, what we would say is that both of those facts exist at the same time, and the relationship to those facts is more important than the version of reality that you see versus what someone else sees. The truth is, both of those realities are true for each one of your individual perspectives. Both of those energies are true from each one of your individual perspectives. And this gets into very difficult understandings of what is real and what isn't, but it stems from the reality, the truth that you get to choose your reality based off of your relationship with the events of your life and lives in the future and the past. So thinking now of your lives as more of a circle rather than a strict timeline, you can see that your point on this circular plane interacts with every other life you have had, that all the events are in relationship to you. And until you come to the point of neutrality with these different events and the energies of them, you are still affected by them. So this is how you can carry forward energies from the past that still affect you, but also energies from the future that affect you as well. That you are in that completeness of your consciousness in this moment in relationship to every life that you have had and every life that you will have. Now, when it comes to the idea then of the paradox of facts occurred in the past that cannot be changed, understanding that what makes your reality is your relationship energetically with events, not the events themselves, this can change your reality. This can change your energy, your perspective, and how it affects you. So this is also how, in many ways, healing works. that you can heal things in the past by changing your relationship with them, coming to something more positive, or coming to something neutral if you wish to be more independent in this life. This also goes forward into your future lives, that you can energetically change the relationship with the future. This is the same way as in this moment, you can change your relationship with events in your past of your life, as well as in your future. For example, if there is something that was a difficulty when you were younger, changing your perspective of that difficulty can help you come to a sense of peace, or better yet, a sense of neutrality about it to allow you to live in this moment fully. The same can be said of the future, that you are imagining, we will say, potential outcomes of the future. And so allowing yourself to recalibrate that relationship with those futures that you are imagining of those potential possibilities, you can reassign that energetic relationship, or even yet come to neutral again, so that way you are living in peace in this moment. Ultimately, one of the many goals that your soul has is to live in its own energy all the time. So, coming to neutral about different events is often one of its main goals, of instead of being affected and allowing your soul, your being, to internalize external energies, but rather to come to a point of neutral, to interact with them, but to be your own energy fully and completely. Imagining yet again this circle of your lives being on this point of your current life. If you are neutral to all of them, then you are just here. Your consciousness is unaffected by everything else that you have lived or will live, and that you are fully experiencing yourself in this moment. And that is in part what your soul is striving in many ways to do. We hope that this helps you understand this paradox a bit more, because it is truly a paradox. But understand, it is always you in relationship to everything outside of you, including all of the yous that have been or ever will be, as those are outside of who you are in this moment. We send you great love. That is all. Well, I don't know about you, but it's going to take me a little bit to really fully understand how that works. Of course, because I'm the one channeling it, is a little bit easier for me. But then when I try to logically think about it, it falls apart in my understanding of that if we are in a circle style relationship to all of our lives and everything is happening all at once, then that means that our consciousness right now can rewrite our past. And what Monty is saying is that the events themselves, the physical manifestation of energies, may not be able to be changed, but our relationship and the energetic ties that we have to them is what can be changed. And that is what dictates our experience. So with that understanding, when it comes to the question of free will, say, for example, in a past life, we made certain choices that led us to have a certain energetic relationship with an event. We had a traumatic experience, we internalize that energy, and we carry it forward into our next linear life of the next life that we incarnate in our timeline. And we carry with us that energetic trauma. As we heal that energetic trauma, we release it, we come to a point of neutral, we are changing our relationship to the events as they occurred. It doesn't change the event as it occurred, but it changes our relationship to it. And so therefore our energy changes as part of that, and the effect it has on us changes. Because, and this is the supposition I would make, that Monty's not drawing this conclusion, but the conclusion that I would draw is that how things affect us is always energetic first. That events that happen, how we deal with them comes down to the energy rather than the physical first. And that's not saying that physical events don't affect us, but the interpretation of that relationship energetically is really what determines our involvement with that event, how it affects us, what changes it makes on us in our lives. And I can definitely see this playing out in my own life that I have right now, the life that I'm living. So forgetting the past and the future, which I do, as a side note, enjoy his perspective of we can change things in the future. And it's very applicable of if we're having anxiety, we change the relationship to the events that we think are going to happen. Even if the things that we think are going to happen that we feel anxious about, we can change that relationship and we suddenly don't feel so anxious about them, even though it could still be something negative. That blew my mind. But back to my point. I have had a traumatic health event in my life that I've talked about briefly on this show of that I took a single antibiotic and it really changed my life. My health is completely changed because of that. And I decided that I was going to have a relationship with that event that said, okay, it can be positive. It is something that has changed who I am, that has helped me come more into alignment with who I really am instead of living the way that I did. It held me accountable in a way that I was not holding myself accountable, that this external energy, rather, of that event caused me to really change things and who I was being and how I was showing up in the world. And that I feel much happier now, much more rewarded now, even though I'm still dealing with a lot of the physical effects. Some of them are annoying, some of them are really disruptive, but that single event, I can have that perspective and have that relationship to it. I would love to feel neutral about it, but I don't feel that I quite can. I'm working on that. But I saw a lot of other people when I was looking for more information about how to treat this, of trying to piece through information, especially on Reddit forums, about people that took a very negative perspective of that event, that had the same symptoms, the same lifelong effects that I have, the same level of chronic illness that was caused by it, that they had a very different relationship to that event. And yes, from time to time, I absolutely get into that more negative relationship with it of, I really wish I hadn't done this. I have so much regret. I have shame about myself of making the decision to take that antibiotic, all of those things. But by constantly returning to a more positive relationship with it, I can see how that affected my ability to heal. Because the people that I've noticed, and this is not to blame them by any means, of saying, I've been very fortunate, I'm very lucky. I know that not everyone has the ability to heal the way that I did because of resources and conditions and genetics and all sorts of stuff. But I did notice that the more negative perspective relationship to the event, the less likely they were to then be able to shift into their own healing, to shift into something that was more of a positive perspective, not just on the event, but on their current reality. Of that event could dictate their current reality so much so. And in truth, like a lot of us are still experiencing the same symptoms. I have a lot of the same issues that some of these other people do. But by shifting my relationship with the event that happened in the past, that shifts my reality. So I can see how that plays out just in this one life. Now, how that could play out across lives gets much more complex, of events that happen that I don't even know about, but that I still have a relationship to the energy. That's things that I've sorted through in energy healing, of saying, okay, I can feel this energy. I don't know why I feel this way. Well, I don't need to know what the event was, but I can change my relationship to that energy, to that feeling that I have, and start to change that and shift that. And I think that's how we can evaluate the circle, kind of in that way of coming to terms with that, even though the events have happened and their form is unchangeable, we can change our relationship energetically to different things. Now, I will say that this only affects us in our individual perspective. I do think that to a certain extent, because for example, say, someone had a past life as someone that caused a lot of turmoil, or they did something that set off a geopolitical thing in the past, they can only change their relationship to that event, right? But it's not going to change it for everybody else too. But by changing their relationship to it, other people will see that they have a different relationship to it, and it will cause them to make different choices about their relationship to it. So by choosing the relationship that we have to these even geopolitical events, we can have different perspectives on them, or come to that neutral point that Monty has talked about. Neutrality is really difficult. I will admit, I am not very neutral about many things. It is something that I'm always working towards. But I think that's kind of the idea of everyone has their own perspective. It creates their own reality. The events are kind of the way that they are, but how we see them, of how we see the facts, is shaped by that energetic relationship. And I think this is really important to understand as well, is that science kind of shows that when it comes to events, we have a hard time actually saying what the facts are. In the law, for example, you can have multiple people testify of what the facts are, and they're completely different. And they will say with 100% surety, that is exactly what happened. Those are the facts. I know it. I saw it. I believe it. And you can show them video footage of it, and they will say, no, that's fake. And this was before AI. So it was real. And they would say, no, that's not what happened. Because we are so tied to our relationship with the events, it definitely shifts the facts for us. And there is that, kind of empirical things we can measure that are the facts that are irrefutable, that it takes that form that, is not a matter of opinion. And yet, even still, our relationship to those facts that are not a matter of opinion is what dictates our perspective, dictates our energy, dictates how we live our lives. So I would say that in terms of free will, where we're getting to then is we exercise free will by changing our relationships to the events externally and the energies externally that we are in collaboration with or association with or interact with. And that's how we exercise free will. That's what I would take away from today's episode for our listener question. As always, with these more philosophical questions that Monty answers, maybe this perspective resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. That's okay. It's your perspective and your relationship with the energy, I guess. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I know that I have, and it is one that will probably stick with me for a very long time. If you have a question that you'd like to submit to have Monty channel on and for us to cover on the podcast, you can send us a text in the show notes. You'll find that right up at the top. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear your feedback on your favorite episode or how different episodes are landing with you. So that way we know what kind of content that you want to hear. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you in the next one.